Hello, and you're very welcome back to the Public Eye Business Podcast brought to you by Granite Exchange. As always, I'm your host, Sarah Travers, and throughout this series, I speak with local entrepreneurs and business leaders to learn more about their journeys, to gain an insight into their growth, challenges, and the innovative ways they're shaping to the future. So, wherever you get your podcasts from, remember to follow the Public Eye and stay up to date with all new episodes. Today, I'm joined by Róisín Erskine. Róisín is an artist, a project manager, and an arts administrator with, as you will hear, a wonderfully diverse creative career. Róisín, you're very welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
I'm only disappointed you didn't bring your ukulele. I've been doing all my homework, and I thought we might have had a song today, but
next time, Sarah.
Next time. So, who is Róisín? Well, over the past 2 decades, Róisín Erskine has built a diverse career across the creative industries, from managing a touring circus, if you don't mind, and producing international collaborations, to hosting the world's first online ukulele festival and publishing her first book. Her background in youth work, community development and peace building has shaped her passion for using creativity as a tool for connection and change. Since 2020, she has been developing trauma-informed martial arts and therapeutic self-defense, blending yoga therapy, mindfulness and breath work to explore boundaries, to explore authenticity and psychological safety. A member of the first all-female Irish team to complete the Mongol Rally. I can't wait to ask you about that. She's currently writing about that journey in her next book, so I might have to wait, actually. So Róisín teaches corporate wellness at the award-winning Ballyburn Outdoor Escapes in Ballynahinch, and she recently joined Belfast City Council as Project Support for Peace Plus. So there is so much there, and so much that we can introduce, I suppose, to the business community as well on what you can do to help them and the people that they work with. Such a wide-ranging career, but let's go right back, if you don't mind, Róisín. Where are you from? Where did you grow up? And obviously you loved music and drama at school.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. So born and reared in County Down, originally from Downpatrick, and now living in Crossgar, so slightly closer to Belfast, but sort of in and around the region. It's nice to be close to family, I think the older you get. So that was a very conscious decision that we made.
And you have a young son as well, so
yeah,
that helps.
Yeah, exactly. And he's delighted to see both sets of his grandparents regularly. So
there's so much in that introduction. It was one of those ones, I was trying to condense it, but we had to tell everybody just about how creative you are and that creative and wide-ranging creative career you have. Circus, writing, wellness. It all ties in. So what first drew you into the creative industries, and then how did you segue into that wellness connection?
Yeah, I mean, it was difficult to try and kind of originally conceptualise how I managed to move through all these different kind of chapters, if you like. But when I thought about it, you know, as you say, dance and drama was a big thing in school, English language and literature was a big thing in school. And then when I got my first Saturday job, so, you know, back in the day when you got £15 for working all day Saturday, I worked in a flower shop in my local town. And then when I left school at 18, I actually went straight into full-time employment in the flower shop. And believe it or not, I went into competitive flower arranging.
Oh, okay. So there's a bit of a competitive, right? And did it get really competitive?
Well, I did quite well at it.
Dawn?
So it was Dahlia's at Dawn. It was. It's actually. It's not as cutthroat as it sounds, but it's kind of like an industry trade fair, if you like. So it brings a lot of different organisations together, and it just kind of highlights new things for the season or shows new techniques that are kind of coming across in a fusion way from different parts of the world. So it was really fascinating, and of course it was brilliant to win some accolades and bring those trophies home as well.
And tell me about the circus. Well, how did that happen? And what did you do in the circus?
Yeah, sure. So the circus actually is a community that I was very fortunate to fall into, and it was just by pure accident. You know, I happened to be working in Belfast. I met a few people who introduced me to a few other things, and it's actually something I write about in my book, because the circus community was one that kind of opened doors for me in a way that it actually opened my own mind first and introduced me to a lot of other ways of being and other ways of seeing the world. And actually, you know, I kind of see circus as the art of the impossible. So when you start to see the world through that lens, actually, it's incredible what you can achieve.
Isn't that amazing? Hold up the book so that the cameras can actually see this. So this is the first book. The second one is coming out. So Losing My Mind Mindfully, a 10-year journey through meditation practices. And then just talking about the circus, when you were saying, explaining, I suppose, the circus, there's so much that you do think as somebody who enjoys maybe watching at the circus. You look at these performers and you think, how do they do that? But that mastering new skills. There's so much in that about overcoming the barriers that you have in your mind.
Yeah, precisely, because it's all in the mind. And actually, you know, there's the mastery of the skill and then there's the mastery of the self as well. So it's overcoming fear and challenge and understanding how you can reframe things to make them more achievable. But certainly that's one of the reasons why people keep coming back to circus as well, is this constant kind of vibrancy and excitement and, you know, just joy and awe and, you know, the kind of thing you wouldn't see really anywhere else. So yeah, it's a delight to be involved in the circus.
And what did it teach you skills-wise, and that you could do whatever you put your mind to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it taught me that fear is an illusion, and, you know, this great saying, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. And actually that couldn't be more true. You know, it's the fear that holds you back. It's not the actual participation. And so learning to do things like fire dancing, for example, you know, you try to learn it and you're doing these skills and you're bruising yourself and you keep missing the mark, and then just sort of gradually, it feels like all of a sudden, but gradually the skills kind of embed in your muscle memory and your body and the way you move and carry yourself. And then before you know it, you're able to do things that, like I say, seemed utterly impossible just a few weeks or months ago. So that actually translates to all areas of life then. You know, you start to become more resilient in your mindset and think, you know, well, I might have got a no there, but sure, what does that mean? I don't know how many no's I got when I tried to learn a new skill before suddenly I was able to do it to gasps of wonder and amazement, you know. So yeah, and it's thrilling.
And thrilling and liberating.
Absolutely.
When you realise what you can do.
Yeah.
And fear, honestly, it's just... why do we have fear? I suppose back in the fight, flight, freeze response when you saw that saber-toothed tiger or, you know, something when we were back in caves that terrified us. It was there to keep us safe.
Correct.
But it's gone into overdrive for so many people.
Yeah. Well, you're so on the money with that. So fear obviously is a safety mechanism. It's there to keep us safe and it's there to alert us to danger. But it's not a deliberate, conscious or academic response. It's something that happens in our nervous system. And so as you say, it's gone into overdrive for a lot of people. A lot of people don't realise how directly related that is to what they consume, be that food, be that media, be that a lack of consumption. You know, the same way you would be deficient in vitamins, you can also be deficient in quality social engagement or consuming of, you know, quality art. And actually Stendhal Festival up in Limavady, Stendhal syndrome means to go mad from the exposure to too much quality art. And I think that's something, like, we have this real juxtaposition here. Like, we have these incredibly talented artists in Northern Ireland. Like everything else, we're punching well above our weight. And yet in all, we don't recognise it because it's on our own doorstep. So I would absolutely love to champion that as something that we should really be prioritising.
So Stendhal syndrome, that is the first on me.
Yeah. Well, it won't surprise you to know I was involved in Stendhal as well, just in sort of in one of the creative areas.
So many questions, but I suppose at the end of the day, we have a business-focused podcast or indeed an entrepreneurial podcast, and you cross over between the two. You know, that is what you do, but you help people in business by exposing them to the arts and that corporate wellness world. Is that the sector you find yourself working in?
Yeah, so that would be part of it. So I can speak on that, and then probably to the kind of arts and business scene and how that interacts in kind of the hospitality and arts, you know, tourism, that kind of offering. But corporate wellness is something that I'm very passionate about, having spent time in boardrooms and, at different various levels, seeing the degrees of stress that people are under. And as I say today, with the rampant consumption, and it always feels like there's never enough time.
Yep.
And so it's so needed, particularly in the corporate world. There's a lot of burden on those shoulders, as there is everybody at the minute, to be fair. And so in Ballyburn, Claire and Damien are absolute champions. They've kind of envisaged this place out of nothing, and they've started with alpacas, and now they have these beautiful glamping pods, and I go in and deliver wellness, and there's someone else coming in doing forest schools, and it's just this very immersive, when you talk about unplugging and rewilding, Ballyburn Outdoorscapes is the place to go. And so I teach corporate wellness there, and it could be a mental health charity from West Belfast, or it could be a wealth management company from the city centre. And basically they all come in, it's funny because it's the exact same pattern, they all come in, their shoulders are up to here, and everybody's kind of very and then by the time you move through a few sessions, and really my role in that regard is to help people find their entry point and to equip them to be able to implement some of these things at home when they don't have the kind of coaching and the guided practices.
Their entry point?
Yeah, well, so a lot of people think meditation, for example, has to be sitting, under a tree chanting Om, but that's actually, mindfulness is so much easier to access than that. And take my husband, for example, this is something I write about in the book. He's the first one to recommend meditation. He wouldn't do it himself,
Right.
but he's a swimmer. And swimming is a meditative practice because you focus on the breath. You do
repetition of the stroke.
Correct. So it's all that monotony. That's it. The single focus to the exclusion of everything else.
And runners as well.
Precisely. So now you're understanding it. So help people find their entry point is about connecting what I know to what they know.
Yes, because for some people the idea of sitting and chanting Om under a tree just gives them...
they could think of nothing worse. Absolutely. And actually, for some people, when you talk about trauma-informed work, for some people it would actually be very triggering because to sit quietly, they might have found themselves in a position where that was actually quite dangerous to do.
And the breath work, that would be just too much, that could trigger.
It could, exactly, yeah. So you need to tread carefully with these things and obviously give people the knowledge so that they can self-manage as well.
So you would really be a champion for more investment in the arts.
Oh, absolutely.
As being good business for all.
As I had just mentioned there, when we talk about arts in the scheme of hospitality and tourism, for example, I'm general manager for Tumble Circus. So every December we do a 3-week run of circus shows in Cathedral Quarter in the heart of Belfast. So we have what we call a little big top. So it's a big top, but it's city centre sized, which means we don't have to sit on the outskirts of the city like other touring circus companies. We come right into the heart of the cultural quarter.
Lovely.
And 2026 will be our 10th year. And we invite numbers of up to 5,000 audience over the run, which is just phenomenal when you see the broad backgrounds, diverse backgrounds that people come from. But 50% of those people come from outside of the city. Our audience surveys and monitoring data shows that maybe 75% of our audience members never come to any other cultural offering in the Cathedral Quarter. So we're bringing investment into the area.
75%?
Correct.
Of those who've come. And
They come
what
once a year.
What are your numbers?
About 5,000.
Oh my goodness.
Now that's 5,000 audience. It goes up every year.
So that's really amazing. So the
huge.
circus is pulling them in.
It's huge, and precisely, and pulling them in regularly. But what our monitoring data shows is that every year that they return, they bring more people with them. So initially it was younger family members, then it's maybe older family members, then it's maybe friends as well. So the parties grow and grow and grow. And our data also shows that, I think it's around 80% of people who come to our shows go for dinner or drinks before or after the show, and also, tie it in with their shopping and other events. So the economic impact of that in that local area, in what Damien from CQ Bid calls the darkest days of winter, we're thrilled to have that impact and to bring those people together. And that would be the argument for me in terms of, business community getting behind investment in the arts, because CQ Bid do support us. They make contributions towards our running costs and our marketing for that, and it pays dividends.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, obviously, that's just a great success story, and the 10th year coming up then.
In 2026, so 25 is our ninth year,
Ninth
yeah,
year,
and we're
and
just going from strength to strength. It's
And what
absolutely
are the
thrilling.
dates this year, just to make a note?
Oh, I should have absolutely
Yeah.
jotted
We'll
that
look
down.
that up.
It's actually, I think it's like the 13th of December until the 2nd of January, but it's in and around that.
Oh,
It's a
lovely.
3-week run, yeah, exactly.
Well, I have never checked that out, but it sounds, and it's for all ages, is it?
Yes, absolutely. And Sarah, just let me know what size your party is and we'll put you on the guest list.
Oh, excuse me, I'm not allowed to take. I can't be. I can't be seen to be taking any freebies. But fine. No, I love the sound of it, and I think it's just that we'll come back to what the business community can do. But when we look at the public purse. We're hearing every day, sure, we're all the cost of living crisis. There's not enough money for beds in hospitals. The waiting lists are horrendous. Education, everything. The arts get squeezed and more squeezed because it's not seen as a priority.
Correct. Yeah. And it's a real tragedy in some ways, because it's hard to know which strand to start with in this conversation. So, the fact that we're a post-violent conflict society means that we need the arts more than ever, because we have a lot of work to do to catch up with where other places are in terms of what they're delivering as a mental health strategy. So the arts could be a huge investment into that. Yeah. So here we actually spend, it's little over £5 per head of the population per capita. And that is, it pales in comparison to Wales is something like £15 per head. London is more like 27, and the same in the south in the Republic of Ireland as well. And then when you go into Europe, it's more like £40 per head. So the difference in how we invest is astounding. It's it's significant to say the least.
Those figures are incredible. Now I can't fact check right
no,
now
exactly,
for you,
and please do.
No, those are really, really.
Yeah,
that's dramatic. We're only getting £5. Are they happier elsewhere?
No. And that's the thing, if that's what we're doing with such little resource, imagine what we could do with some proper investment. And just to make the point in terms of how cross-cutting the arts are, in the south they have just completed a pilot scheme, a 3-year pilot scheme of basic artist income. And it was such a raging success that it looks set to be rolled out as a permanent feature. Now, in France, that's where it was modelled from. France has been doing this for a very long time. And just to explain briefly how it works, in France, if you can submit 2 invoices to demonstrate that you have been employed as an artist professionally in the year, you get a basic artist income. Now, it's not a lot of money. It is, it's maybe 12 grand a year, but that's significant when we look
with
at
2 invoices.
With 2 invoices for professionally contracted work.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not huge. Now, the onus is on you as the artist to make that a viable income, to go out and pursue more work. But if you can live on that, you can dedicate your 40 hours a week, your 50 hours a week, whatever it is, to the development of your practice. Now, in Northern Ireland, we, through an Arts Council survey, know that the majority of artists here are only earning about 11 grand a year. And that doesn't even touch the size when we talk about, minimum wage and it's terrifying.
So they're forced
to think
into
that
doing something else that sort of...
Precisely, to subsidise their income, absolutely. But when we look at things like, social isolation as one of the biggest issues in communities that is costing our health service because we're not able to address it in a timely manner, and then it rolls into other conditions and need for diagnoses and medications and whatever, this could be a really early intervention in a very soft way, that builds community, builds empathy, builds connections and just raises the whole kind of quality of life for people in these communities in need.
But if we don't have artists or young people at schools considering that career any longer because they couldn't afford it, and they are going to have to work on the side as a barista or a waitress or whatever, just to, as and when the work comes in, then we're not going to have enough artists to be able to deliver this huge benefit to people's mental health and well-being.
No, that's right. But I would say, so there's a few different things with that. The other thing just that I wanted to touch on briefly was social prescribing. So social
Yes.
prescribing is something that we're supposed to have here. And there was, again, a big pilot done. We're very good at running the pilots, and then we kind of get the reports, and that's the end of it.
So this is where a GP, for example, could suggest, your gym or joining a choir or something like that to help you with whatever your ailment is, not
Yes.
necessarily just mental health. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So we're supposed to have that as practice and in our GPs.
It's
and
something
not
that's
happening.
available throughout the rest of Britain. Like I said, there was a pilot study that ran over 3 years here, and it was a huge piece of work, and it was in conjunction with, Scotland and I think perhaps Wales as well, and it was funded through the big lottery. It's proven to work. And yet and all, we're just not doing it. And the mind boggles as to why that's not happening. And, potentially one of the ways that we kind of create the resource, I think it's down to infrastructure. I think we just don't have the community infrastructure to pull it off, because we're already leaning so hard on the community voluntary sector to deliver statutory services, which is, again, not good enough.
So what's your call to action then?
It's to be honest, I think what we need to do is implement the basic income for artists. The amount of artists who could feed into social prescribing, but even in terms of, look at Game of Thrones, look at what that generated here for tourism and for communities and for producers and for right across the creative industries. It wasn't just actors, so we need to think more strategically about the arts. It's an innate human quality. It's something we should all have access to. Whether we're going to use it to make money or not. And that's my call. But so we need basic income for artists, and we need affordable studio space for artists, because they're crying out for it. The sector is on its knees.
Really, that's a very bold statement. So you would say that today, and you want businesses to set up and come in and help. How can they help?
It's all about investment, which makes it sound like it's all about money. It's not. Sometimes, like I say, if we're talking about affordable studio space, potentially that's something business can help with. So it's not necessarily about, throwing money at new shows or whatever. It's just about making space for the arts within our communities, because we know that's where it belongs. We know the impact that it has, and we know that, look, for example, at Belfast City Council, I think they have a strategy where they want to raise the number of people living in the city centre. How are they going to do that? They're going to do that through the arts.
Yeah.
The jobs are going to bring people in. The arts is what's going to keep people there.
The arts put joy into life.
Yeah, that's it, exactly, yeah. So if you're, doing your 40-hour week and then you want to go out and see a show, you want to have some live music in a pub, you want to, no matter what it is, the arts touches everybody's life. From the minute you get up in the morning, you dress in the clothes that you've chosen. An artist has created those or designed those, chosen the colours, woven the fabrics. Your phone has been designed by an artist. The cover, the apps, absolutely everything you touch in a day, an artist has had a hand in making. So why do we treat it like it doesn't matter?
Or it's just a nice to have rather than
Aye.
a necessity.
Precisely, yeah.
Go talk to me a little bit more about your work around trauma. So you do a lot. What is it that you can do and offer?
Okay. So a lot of my work in trauma stems from the 20 years experience I have working in marginalised communities, which is, the communities that I have my experience in are generally listed in the top 5% of the multiple deprivation indices, which means they have multiple complex and intersecting poverties, which obviously leads to various different degrees of trauma. Now, I, kind of see everything through the lens of we're all kind of swimming through this transgenerational trauma here now at the minute,
Yes.
where even if you didn't live through the violent conflict, you're certainly dealing with the implications of it.
Yes, and you've been
day.
parented by people who've lived through the conflict, and even if it didn't, you didn't have something directly happen to your family.
Yes.
Fear and not speaking was very much a collect. Everybody felt it.
Yeah, precisely.
And even understanding that you've been impacted, even if you think you haven't.
Yes, precisely.
And I thought that when I watched that series, Once Upon a Time in Northern Ireland, that, didn't matter where you came from, whatever community or background, you were brought up differently, looking over your shoulder, not fully at peace with being able to speak. You knew when you had to sit in the fence and be quiet. And if you spoke out, there was risk with that.
Precisely. And so, on a very basic level, we experience the world nervous system to nervous system. So, whether I speak to you or not, your nervous system is reading the cues that my nervous system is sending out. So, if I was sat here with my eyes sort of drooping down and my mouth pointing downwards, you would not be engaging with me in a kind of light-hearted, open way. Your nervous system would tell you that that might be a danger cue and to hold back a little bit and to guard yourself a little bit. And so how we interact with each other day to day is based on the non-verbal cues before the verbal cues. And so the work that I do around trauma is very much led by the impact that I have seen the arts have on the people whose nervous systems are completely dysregulated. And that tends to be, growing up in communities where there is that constant threat of, violence, aggression, intimidation, absolutely, all these things that we know still go on, that there are pockets of, but because in some areas we seem to have progressed much further than that, they're almost forgotten about.
Yeah.
So a lot of my work, generally I actually don't work with the public except for through Ballyburn Outdoor Escapes, because a lot of my work is commissioned and it's going in and working with groups, custom designing programs to speak to their individual needs. So it could be yoga therapy in one setting, it could be singing workshops in another setting, it could be teaching meditation. The therapeutic self-defense is something that I'm particularly passionate about because it's something that I had to move through myself before I understood how I could use it to help other people.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So, we all know about the Ending Violence Against Women and Girls strategy and how important that work is, particularly in the face of the numbers of femicide and assault. And the point isn't made nearly often enough. A lot of that is as a direct result of the violent conflict that we lived through or that our predecessors lived through. So we can't deny that. We have a cultural context here that shapes how women are viewed, the experiences that they have. And we know that, I think the statistic was something like 1 in 4 women experience assault, sexual, physical, psychological assault. I think the number's probably much higher if we were being honest about it. So the therapeutic self-defense for me is actually a conversation, again, with other people's nervous systems, to almost reflect back to them where they're holding their fears and their habitual tensions, because we don't recognise when our breathing goes shallow and our muscles tense slightly and we prepare ourselves for that little bit of danger. We do a tension relaxation exercise that I teach, and it brings people through the various different degrees of tension in their body. And when you ask people which degree felt most normal to you, and they will say in and around 30 to 50%. So most of us are walking through life with 30 to 50% tension in our bodies. We don't know what true relaxation is. Yeah. And so much of the work that I do is about, first of all, introducing people to those edges so they can start to map out who they are and how they are habitually, and then teaching them strategies and skills so that they can self-regulate, co-regulate, so that they can notice when they're in fear and choose whether or not they want to respond in that moment. And that's another thing meditation teaches us, and it's all in the book. But it's this idea of you can react, or you can not, or you can just observe. That's the third option, just observe.
Is that awareness?
Yeah, because, so here's the thing. If you react, then you're going to have to live with the consequences of whatever you did with your reaction. So very often that's called, in meditation, that's called the second arrow. So it's not the actual incident that you're living with. It's the guilt or the shame or the embarrassment of how you feel after the fact that burdens you more than the actual event. It's
the beliefs and the consequences of the act. Yeah,
absolutely. And that, they can be all in your head as well, so we're forever kind of making a rod to beat ourselves with, framed by the context of how we've grown up, and we don't realise that other people just aren't living with these burdens.
And you say it helped you personally?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was a young female working in bars. I know all about gender-based assault.
Right.
I was very surprised to speak to any young women who don't know what I'm talking about in that regard.
And I've never heard of that therapeutic self-defense. I've heard of
No,
self-defense,
no.
and that maybe I could see how that would make you feel like, should you be assaulted or feel in fear, you could defend yourself.
Sure.
But this is different.
This is different in the sense that many martial arts classes, it'll be a man teacher. It'll be much bigger than the students because he's been training for years and is, very, very well built or whatever. And sometimes they're small, don't get me wrong. I'm being very general here. But what a lot of people don't realise is going into a martial arts class as a woman is already very confrontational and triggering because of the lived experience across the board as a gender. It's something that men just don't have to live with or tolerate or anticipate broadly. So therapeutic self-defense, you can think of it as like the pre-work that some women can do if they ever want to access that kind of environment. But it's also around, some women don't realise that they are afraid of men. For example, some women don't realise the fear that they're holding in their body. If they have had a stalker or they've been, just even an online psychological assault. So when you bring women into these positions, these situations where they get to kind of role play some of that confrontation, but it's in a safe psychological container. So you move slowly. There's nothing kind of sudden or, obviously dangerous about the actions and the drills. So it's this very slow-paced opportunity for a woman to feel through the fear, breathe through the fear, understand in real time that they're not in danger in that moment, and then start to build a catalogue of positive experiences that can offset the negative experiences that are stored within their memory banks.
So a little like CBT.
A little like CBT,
reframing.
A little like EMDR. It's all just about, and it's funny, it's, as I read up about these other modalities, I realise that largely these things are the same. And again, that's one of the things I talk about in my book is it doesn't matter if it's meditation, yoga, singing, drawing. It doesn't matter if it's, martial arts or boxing, running, it doesn't matter if it's cycling, climbing, travelling,
what's your entry
writing,
point?
right? Exactly.
Yes, okay.
So, and actually the last chapter is called Find Your Frequency, because it's just about finding the things that feel most appropriate and safest for you, and those things will change over time. So you don't need to cling to them like a life raft. You just need to see what piques your curiosity, take a little opportunity to dabble. And, you might be surprised the impact that you see and you receive.
Who do you expect to be the reader of this book? Who's already saying, I love it?
Yeah, it's been really fascinating. I have had a lot of really great feedback. It has been from mostly women, I have to say, and I don't know whether that's because it's a purple cover or whether it's because I'm a female author. It's my first book, so I don't have any experience to benchmark it against. But I did actually receive a voicemail from a friend yesterday, and I had sent him a copy of the book. He gives me a copy of a different female adventurer every year for my birthday, and I was only too delighted to send him a copy of my book. And shout out to Stunt Grandad from Winter Circus. That's Bucky, for those who know him better. And he just left me this really lovely voice note to say that he had started reading the book and then his partner stole it. She read it. Then he got it back. And there's, right at the start, I talk about this habitual tendency to say sorry, particularly in Northern Ireland, where we're constantly apologising for ourselves.
Actually, 2 women going in and out of the service station up All Green this morning, and we were all sorry, and there was no need for the sorries.
No, precisely.
Instead of there you go, I'll hold the door for you.
Absolutely, yeah. But it's this kind of constant feeling of, a need to kind of minimise ourselves and make ourselves invisible and excuse our very presence and the fact that we're, dare to breathe and take up space. They, as a couple, have read this bit separately, and then they've come back and talked about it and had a real good laugh about it, and maybe explored how they might choose different ways to express themselves
or
in that moment.
Or support each other if that happens, and you go, you're doing that, you're doing the sorry.
Yeah, precisely. And I suppose it's just, ultimately it's about giving people permission to not be fully formed, perfect, to know what they're doing. Someone else described it in a review as what was it? Róisín's writing style is casual and sometimes blunt, which I thought was brilliant because it is a very honest, raw reflection of my experience with the benefit of a range of different awareness practices and modalities. And it's just to give people a big hug and say, you know what, take a breath, take a beat, everything's going to be all right.
We've so much to talk about. I don't think I've ever had a guest in the studio with so many different facets. But, the book is one thing. You are an entrepreneur yourself, really. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how do you find all of the juggling, because, we've talked about the touring circus. I want to mention that you held the world's first 3-day online ukulele festival. That must have been a noisy experience, but very good fun. And, you've also managed to complete the Mongol Rally. So how do you juggle everything in your crazy life?
Yeah, I think, part of it comes from just being creative and wanting to engage with all of these different things. But part of it is...
You've so many different sides to you. You were never going to do a 9 to 5.
No. And I have done, don't get me wrong, I have done. And I've done all the jobs, hospitality, cleaning in a school, all the jobs.
But how do you manage what's a typical day for you?
It's very varied, which is something that I completely embrace.
And your workflow and everything, how do you look ahead and go, where are my priorities now? How do I focus on the right thing at the right time?
Well, so that's where the project management comes in. And for as creative as my brain is, I definitely have this very logical kind of, here's the kind of way we should move through this. And so it's spreadsheets, really. If I'm being honest, I'm never done making lists, and I'm never done colour coding things. And that's how...
And ticking them off, do you enjoy
a good tick off? I love ticking them off. I will absolutely add things to a list so I can have the satisfaction of ticking them off. I think that to go back to fear, because it is a very fundamental experience, the older we get, the more scared we get. And that's something that I noticed very early on. And it's something that I committed to continually challenge myself with. Not everything. You don't have to constantly challenge yourself to be better and do better and whatever, but to strategically challenge instances where I feel fear and friction, and to decide if that's a real safety cue or if it's just my ego trying to say, oh, that's not for you. Don't do that, And
protecting you.
Protecting me, but ultimately deluding me. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, again, particularly in the context of Northern Ireland, where the safety cue is be quiet and stay small, and particularly for women, that's something that I challenge regularly. So there's a chapter in the book called Shame and the Voice. And it's something that I've taught online and had a lot of response from America. It's something that when I teach it in England, it's sell-out workshops. People can't wait to come and hear about it. It's something that when I teach in Belfast is very poorly attended because we're so scared.
Gosh.
We're so scared.
Maybe we feel we'd need to go somewhere else to do the talking part.
Absolutely. And, that was one of the beautiful things about all the online work during the pandemic was everything was so freely available. It was so accessible. People who couldn't even leave their own homes for the first time had full calendars of things that they could access and enjoy.
Very true.
Absolutely. And so that's one of the reasons why I like to maintain the kind of hybrid working element.
And an online ukulele festival.
Well, yes. I mean, that was in direct response to the first lockdown. So the lockdown was the 16th of March, the day before St. Patrick's Day. And by the first weekend in May, I had organised the ukulele festival, which was born from delivering ukulele sessions twice a week with different groups in the community. And then when everything moved online, I jumped straight in. I learned the tech. I made the mistakes publicly. I failed publicly. All things that I couldn't have done if I didn't have a robust arts or wellness practice. I would have been too scared. Fear would have stopped me.
So isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So even that whole experience and just having to reinvent how we could stay connected.
Yeah.
But it's okay to not be perfect.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And what I found from that experience was people were so willing, so I managed to recruit 6 other artists. We put on workshops, we did performances, we put out a link at the end of it for, if anybody wants to donate a tip buy us a drink or whatever for putting the event on. And sure enough, so they did, and we were able to pay all the artists what they would have got in
Amazing.
any kind of live
Really?
event. Yeah, absolutely.
So any
People
plans
were
to do
super
more?
generous.
Or do you you still keep the virtual going, but
Well, actually, I
hybrid.
handed it over to one of the most enthusiastic members because I'm very good at kind of stepping back and letting other people kind of
you lead
step up
and
and
they
take
will
ownership.
follow
Absolutely.
and away they go. Now, you
Yeah.
were nominated for the Community Relation Council's Good Relations Award in 2022. What recognition did that mean to you?
Do you know what? It was really lovely to be nominated. I think most especially because generally people are nominated when they work in a charity or organisation. And at that time I was just doing freelance work for myself. So I was working with a plethora of different organisations. And then was nominated from somebody completely remote from that who had just heard about all the work that I was doing and wanted to do something to kind of applaud me, I suppose. And
It's amazing.
yeah, I was thrilled. And that year I was actually up against May Blood, so stiff competition. And
My
you know, in
goodness.
fair play, she won. She absolutely deserved it. We have no idea really, unless we're involved in the conversations, the work that is going on here in the good relations context. You know, there's constant work happening. And, you know, there's a lot to get involved in. There's a lot of investment into communities through Peace Plus and whatever. But it's, you know,
It's unseen, isn't it?
it's largely unseen.
And then hard to perhaps measure the success or look at the outcomes apart from just seeing all the wonderful feedback.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so things like Peace Plus is quite good because they have very robust monitoring and reporting procedures, and obviously it extends much bigger than Northern Ireland, so
Sure.
border counties, cross-community, and so that's fantastic. But you know, most people again don't know about it because if it's not active in their communities, then it's not on their radar. It's not being publicised, and so yeah, I think we have a lot of work to do to bring everyone up to the same baseline. You know,
Or having that one-stop shop that you
Yeah.
could go on and see what's for me in all
Yeah.
of those different areas.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
That's a great question. You know, I come home with these kind of different and crazy ideas all the time, and my husband is very supportive and he's absolutely super, and he just kind of goes along with it, you know.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let me know when you're done if you need
Lovely.
anything.
And do you have people do you employ people now or anything, or do you work with associates, or is it literally you?
It's literally me. I do bring in freelance work and support where I need it, you know, for the, you know, like marketing side or, you know, commissioning book covers or different things. And I work with the Open University, so I will host marketing students, and you know, they do case studies and different things. I've just had one social media strategy developed for Book Talk.
Oh, fantastic.
In partnership with one of the students there. So yeah, I mean, I suppose the next thing for me will be to write the book that I was supposed to be writing when this one came out. This was completely unintentional.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. So the Mongol Rally was the book that I said I would do. So I kept the diaries as I did the rally, knowing that someday I'd want to write about it. And then when I found out I was pregnant, which was 8 years ago, I said, in my naivety, let's say, that I was
You'd
going
have
to...
loads of time.
Aye,
Oh,
I'm
sure,
gonna
what
do-
else would you be doing?
Yeah. So I was going to write this book then, and lo and behold, that didn't happen. And again, I talk about that in this book, you know, that kind of transitioning, you know, particularly as a woman, you go through these different stages in your life and different things come and go. And it's almost like you shed this cocoon and step into another person. And, you know, that's an ongoing transformation throughout life. So the next thing will be to write the second book.
So can you remember the Mongol Rally? Is that the same person as you are now?
Oh, absolutely not.
No.
And thank God I have the notes to
Right.
go through it all again, because
Why did you do that?
Why did I do the Mongol Rally?
Well, how did that come about?
Because I couldn't think of an excuse not to. So I actually was out with some circus friends. So I was in Streetwise Stilt Walking Samba Band, and
As you do.
as you do, and we'd just gone and done a gig, and then we went to the bar just to socialise for an hour afterwards with everyone, because it's all very hectic when you're in the middle of the gig, and then everybody's full of adrenaline after the gig, and it's nice to just decompress together. And a friend of mine said that she was going to do the Mongol Rally, and it's a 1 litre vehicle across 10,000 miles of some of the world's toughest terrain. And I just sat, my jaw open, eyes wide, listening. And I said, oh, wow, I'd love to do that. I'd love to do something like that. And she didn't miss a beat. She said, why don't you? And I had a 30-minute drive home. And by the time I got home, I thought, why don't I?
Oh, my goodness.
And so
did
I did.
you still say that at the end? I'm so glad I did that.
Absolutely. Oh, my
it
goodness.
amazing?
It was amazing. There's one chapter in this book about it. And I will, I can't wait to write the rest of the book because
you'll tell us all.
It was life-changing. We took 3 months to travel, and it actually ended up being 13,000 miles. So we took the long scenic route on a lot of occasions. We drove through places like Iran and camped wild, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Russia, Mongolia. It was absolutely fabulous. Some points were a little hairy, a little bit scary. But for the most part, the learning was...
An all-female team, was it?
All-female team, absolutely. And we could count on one hand how many teams were like us. More often it was a team where they maybe had one female in a group of 3 or 4. But largely it was male teams.
And how did you work together as a team?
Excellently. So we were very practical, on our team, with an engineer, an artist and a project manager. So we were very efficient, let's say, but we did have our challenges.
I'm sure there'll be so many lessons in that and how you manage brilliant creative people all with an opinion.
Yes, well, absolutely.
Who leads?
Yeah, I liken it to trying to herd cats when you're trying to manage artists. It's near on impossible.
So when will that book be out?
Oh, it's a good question. Hopefully the middle of next year. But before that, I actually just about to head into the studio to record my audiobook of the first book.
Lovely.
And so, yeah, that's
and where
happening.
can we get the book? Show us again and remind us where we can get the book.
So this is Losing My Mind Mindfully, 10-year journey through meditation practices. It's available on my website, www.róisínerskine.com, or the other big online seller who I'm not promoting.
Okay, yes, but I think we can all guess who that is. So, final question. I am going to ask you this. I ask all the guests this. So, the purpose of this podcast is to inspire existing business owners and ambitious entrepreneurs and creative entrepreneurs, I suppose, to grow their business by offering an insight into the success of businesses such as your own, Róisín. What advice would you give to people who may have a business idea but have no idea where to begin or are unsure as to whether that risk is worth taking?
Yeah, great question. Well, there's a few things I'd say about that, but I suppose firstly, to frame it, it's only in certain cultures and contexts that we talk about failure as a good thing. So if you take weightlifting, for example, they talk about reps to fail. So push yourself to the point where failure is inevitable. And that's the only way to achieve growth and progress. And it's something that we're all so scared of.
There you go. I love that.
Yeah,
one.
Absolutely. So don't let perfection be the enemy of good. If you don't know what to do something, because then you'll have a response to how you feel about what just occurred. Absolutely. Yeah. My business isn't the same that it was when I started it 8 years ago. It has evolved and grown and changed with me. And I think that's something that's really nice about being in business. It's dynamic and it can be responsive to your needs. It facilitated my raising a young family, and it gave me a breadth of opportunity that I otherwise wouldn't have had. So I'm delighted to have gone into business. I'm super proud of what I've achieved, and I can't wait to see what happens in the next 10 years. And yeah, I suppose the only other thing I would add to that is, the hardest part is starting something. And actually, you can't get to any of the rest of it until you start.
And there we will leave it. Róisín Erskine, thank you so much for joining me today. Do come back, bring the next book and your
my ukulele. Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thanks for joining me in the studio today, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. I'll see you next time. This podcast was recorded in Granite Podcast Studio. Interested in starting up your own podcast but don't know how? Granite Podcast Studio can help. Record your podcast in our state-of-the-art studio, which is based in the heart of Newry City. Our studio has cutting-edge and user-friendly technology and can seat up to 4 people. We also provide an editing service for our team using your guidance and editing notes to provide you with a flawless finished product, leaving your listeners wanting more. For more information on how you can get started, visit www.granitepodcaststudio.com.